Wealthy millionaire proposes to Mistress, but pregnant wife finds out and divorces him on the spot. In the gilded halls of opulence, one secret can unravel everything. Meet Alexander Harrington, a powerful millionaire adored by high society and married to the graceful, pregnant Charlotte. Just when it seems his lavish lifestyle and perfect marriage couldn't be more enviable, a hidden mistress named Rebecca emerges from the shadows. A single glittering diamond ring changes the game forever when he proposes only for Charlotte to learn of his betrayal at the worst possible moment. The fallout is catastrophic, a pregnancy in jeopardy, a reputation on the line, and an unexpected divorce demanded on the spot. This, dear viewers, is a tale of love, lies, and lethal secrets. Alexander Harrington's life was a testimony to the potent mix of ambition, charm, and unyielding determination. Born to middle-class parents in a modest Boston suburb, he learned the value of hard work early on. He once regaled friends with tales of delivering newspapers at dawn, stacking grocery shelves after school, and poring over business books, borrowed from the local library late into the night. By the time he stepped onto the stage at Harvard University, yes, he had managed to earn both a scholarship and part-time jobs to fund his education. He was already nurturing grand visions for his future. Graduating with honors in economics, Alexander wasted no time. He launched Harrington Investments, a hedge fund that struck gold during a boom in technology stocks. By his early 30s, Alexander had built a formidable reputation on Wall Street. Swift, meticulous, and ruthless when necessary, he ensured that every deal benefited him at least triple-fold. Magazines featured him as a rising star in finance. Photographs consistently captured his impeccable suits, hand-tailored Savile Row numbers in subtle shades of charcoal and navy, his sculpted cheekbones, and a disarming yet confident grin. But it was not only wealth that defined him. He possessed a remarkable magnetism, a personal warmth that made others feel secure. Board members, real estate moguls, start-up tech entrepreneurs, everyone gravitated toward Alexander. Some claimed it was his calm, measured voice that drew them in. Others swore it was his ability to listen intently and make you feel like the most important person in the room. But behind that charismatic facade was a man unafraid to bend rules for personal advantage. He hid that side well until, of course, everything came undone. The turning point in his personal life arrived at a lavish charity gala organized by the Forbes Foundation in New York City. That night, the city glistened with wealth, black limousines queued along red carpets, and the clinking of champagne glasses mingled with soft jazz music. Alexander spotted Charlotte Middleton across the crowded ballroom. She was conversing politely with a small circle of philanthropists, but appeared somewhat aloof, as if she found the entire spectacle a bit too ostentatious. Tall and poised, Charlotte exuded a quiet elegance. She wore a simple emerald gown that accentuated her auburn hair and bright hazel eyes. Intrigued, Alexander introduced himself. Charlotte turned out to be an upcoming art curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, renowned for her impeccable taste and eye for modern impressionists. She was neither naive about wealth nor blinded by it. She had grown up in a well-educated family in upstate New York, not quite the same economic bracket as Alexander, but enough to be comfortable and well-traveled. She was serious about her work, determined but with a soft spot for genuine connections. They danced that night, a slow, cautious waltz in the midst of swirling couples. By the end of the gala, Alexander had escorted her to her car, feeling a rush of excitement he hadn't felt in years. Over the next few months, he pursued her with a fierce desire. He sent her carefully selected bouquets of lilies and calla lilies, including little notes referencing art pieces she mentioned enjoying. He didn't shower her with lavish gifts, which he easily could have, but thoughtful tokens that demonstrated his commitment and attentiveness. Soon, their romance flourished. Charlotte admired his fierce dedication, his philanthropic undertakings, and the way he interacted with people from all walks of life. Her discerning eye told her that while he was powerful and ambitious, he was also vulnerable beneath the slick veneer, someone who desired real companionship. Alexander, for his part, found in Charlotte a moral compass that anchored him. She was unwaveringly honest, and her convictions challenged him to become a better man. When he proposed to her one sunlit afternoon in Central Park, in front of Bethesda Terrace, she accepted without hesitation. She truly believed she had found a partner for life. Their wedding was a modest affair, by billionaire standards, fewer than 200 guests. A cozy ceremony in the historical Lyman Estate in Waltham, Massachusetts. Still, the guest list was peppered with prominent figures, CEOs of major corporations, hedge fund power players, and even a few celebrities who had become casual acquaintances. The media labeled the event an elegant union of brains and billions. Shortly after, Alexander and Charlotte purchased a stately townhouse in Manhattan's Upper East Side. The property was lavish, boasting 6 floors, a roof garden, and an in-house staff. Yet Charlotte worked diligently to make it feel like a home rather than a showpiece. For a while, things were perfect, or so it seemed. Alexander maintained his scorching pace in the investment world, and Charlotte continued curating groundbreaking art exhibitions at the Met. They supported each other's dreams wholeheartedly, rarely giving ear to rumors about Alexander's potential indiscretions. The power couple's social circle included the likes of Robert Greene, a media mogul known for his flamboyant lifestyle, and Teresa Smith, an influential publicist who curated events for the city's elites. They traveled together, attended fundraising galas, sipped cocktails at newly opened rooftop bars with unobstructed city views, and all seemed sparkling on the surface. But beneath that glamorous veneer lurked small cracks, barely noticeable at first. Alexander frequently found himself having after-hours meetings, plush dinners at exclusive restaurants, and extended business trips that conveniently overlapped with hush-hush events. Charlotte, though suspicious, let it pass, rationalizing that such was the nature of a high-stakes finance career. After all, Alexander was a millionaire in a cutthroat field, and he needed to be present to close deals. Little did she know that soon, one such deal would become a ticking time bomb in their marriage. Rebecca Marshall was anything but ordinary. She hailed from a small industrial town in Ohio, a place of rusting factories and battered trucks, overshadowed by financial hardship. Determined not to be trapped by her circumstances, she moved to New York with dreams bigger than the Manhattan skyline. She wanted success, wealth, recognition, the good life she saw glorified in magazines and on social media. By her early 20s, she had worked her way into circles that granted her invitations to exclusive parties and investment summits, often as a glorified companion for older financiers. She had mastered the art of forging acquaintances with influential men. She was undeniably captivating, tall, slender, with raven black hair that curled gracefully at her shoulders. Her style effortlessly blended sophistication and understated boldness. She learned quickly that knowledge was power. While her outward charm was disarming, she was also an avid reader of business journals, well versed in the lingo and developments of the financial world. Men found it a rare combination, someone who would smile and sip champagne, but could also hold her own in a discussion about the Federal Reserve's interest rate policies. Rebecca first noticed Alexander Harrington at a hedge fund conference in Miami. She had accompanied a minor investor named Jacob Turner, who introduced her as his associate. Alexander was the keynote speaker that afternoon. Standing at the podium in a tailored navy suit, he spoke with his trademark calm confidence about market volatility, risk tolerance, and investment strategies. Rebecca observed how the entire room hung on his every word. After the talk, she made her move casually, discreetly, so as not to appear desperate. She caught Alexander's attention by asking him a technical question about emerging markets in Southeast Asia. He seemed pleased by the query, and the conversation drifted into more casual talk about travel, the humid Miami weather, and the best restaurants in the city. Alexander was polite but kept a professional distance, yet Rebecca's intuition told her that a door had cracked open, and she vowed to wedge it wide. In the weeks following the conference, she found ways to intersect his orbit. She discovered that Harrington Investments held monthly networking events. She managed to get her name on the guest list through Jacob Turner's connections. When Alexander saw her at these gatherings, a part of him was flattered. Her sharp intellect, combined with a subtle flirtatiousness, was a refreshing change from the usual sycophants he encountered. They shared banter, discussing everything from global trade wars to philanthropic initiatives. Over time, a comfortable rapport formed between them. But it was at a private event, an exclusive fundraiser for hurricane relief in the Bahamas, where lines blurred. The fundraiser took place at the Cloud Room, a skyscraper venue with glass walls that showcased the entire Manhattan skyline. Alexander had invited Charlotte, but she was unwell that evening, an early sign of her pregnancy fatigue. He attended alone, meeting clients, shaking hands, sealing deals. Rebecca was there, in a figure-hugging black gown, her bright eyes searching the crowd. Late into the evening, amid slow jazz tunes and scarce attendees, they found themselves alone on a terrace with glasses of fine champagne. Rebecca confided in him about her upbringing, how she had clawed her way into these circles by learning every nuance of high society. There was something raw and vulnerable in her story, perhaps carefully curated to appeal to Alexander's sense of empathy. Meanwhile, Alexander found himself oddly entranced. Charlotte's supportive presence at home had always been unwavering, but here stood a woman who embodied a certain daring spirit, an eagerness to manipulate fate rather than wait for it. Their conversation stretched past midnight, and a certain palpable tension crackled in the cool night air. Before leaving, Rebecca kissed him lightly on the cheek and whispered, "We should continue this conversation sometime." That single moment was the catalyst. For days after, Alexander wrestled with guilt, replaying the encounter. He told himself it was harmless, that he'd never truly jeopardize his marriage. But the next time he was in town alone, he did call her. They met for coffee. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a few stolen hours at a boutique hotel, carefully chosen in a quieter part of Soho to avoid paparazzi or acquaintances. So began their clandestine relationship. Under normal circumstances, perhaps it might have stayed a fleeting affair, but something deeper caught hold. Rebecca's ambitions meshed well with Alexander's personality. He liked control. She liked the possibilities that arose from being in close orbit to a powerful man. They were like two predators circling each other, feeding off each other's confidence and drive. He admired her canny insights, how she never apologized for wanting more than she had. She admired his power and saw him as her golden ticket to the top echelons of society. Their secret trysts became more frequent, carefully orchestrated around Alexander's business trips. Rebecca used burner phones to communicate, always discreet, never texting or calling at suspicious times. Alexander lavished her with gifts, designer handbags, diamond earrings, extravagant dinners, though she was clever enough to donate or store them away to avoid raising eyebrows. In public, she remained just another sophisticated business associate he might casually greet. But in private, they built a world of whispered promises and illusions of a future that would prove disastrous. Back at the Harrington townhouse, Charlotte was nursing a suspicion that something was off. She noticed that Alexander's business calls were more frequent, his late-night meetings more mysterious, and his affection at times seemed forced. Still, she chalked it up to the high demands of a competitive industry. All top executives go through these stressful phases, she would remind herself. And perhaps, had it not been for a life-changing revelation, she might have dug deeper into her husband's behavior. But fate had other plans. One crisp morning, Charlotte woke up feeling unusually nauseous and dizzy. She had an exhibition opening that day, an exclusive display of postmodern sculptures from emerging African artists, but she struggled to even sip her tea. Concerned, she decided to see a doctor. A few hours and one blood test later, she was told she was pregnant. The news was both thrilling and terrifying. She had always wanted children, but had been concerned about finding the right time, given her career and Alexander's hectic schedule. She paced the living room that evening, planning how to break the news to her husband. A million emotions coursed through her mind: excitement, anxiety, hope for the future. When Alexander arrived home, exhausted from a work meeting, Charlotte met him at the door. She led him to the sofa and quietly handed him the test results, tears of happiness welling in her eyes. For a moment, Alexander felt the ground shift beneath him. He saw the words "positive pregnancy result" and realized their lives were about to change. A father. That notion had once made him giddy with anticipation when he and Charlotte had discussed starting a family. But now, guilt gnawed at him. How could he be bringing a child into a world where he was lying and cheating on his wife? Nonetheless, his immediate reaction was one of cautious joy. He embraced Charlotte, told her he loved her, that they would handle this together, and that he was proud of her. Charlotte felt the tension in his hug, but she attributed it to the shock of the news. Over the next few days, she was inundated with congratulatory calls from close friends. Teresa Smith, the couple's longtime publicist friend, sent a gorgeous bouquet. Robert Greene invited them to a celebratory dinner, which they politely declined because of Charlotte's fragile state. It seemed everyone in their circle was overjoyed by the news. Alexander tried to distance himself from Rebecca, if only temporarily. The reality of impending fatherhood made him question the affair. He sent her a curt text. "Need some space. Something urgent has come up. Will call soon." But Rebecca, a master at reading between the lines, sensed something more was going on. She heard whispers in social circles about Charlotte's pregnancy rumors swirling at dinner parties and galas, and her heart hardened. She had banked on Alexander, viewing her as a crucial part of his future, not just a fling. Now, a baby threatened to alter that dynamic. Charlotte, entirely unaware of her husband's double life, immersed herself in the new reality of being an expecting mother. She started reading parenting books, planning how to merge her career with motherhood, and rearranging the townhouse to create a nursery. Alexander joined her on some of these tasks, painting the future child's room a warm cream color, flipping through baby name guides, and even going to prenatal checkups. For fleeting moments, he almost convinced himself that he could bury the affair and turn over a new leaf, become the devoted husband and father Charlotte deserved. But guilt is a stubborn weed. It grows, tangles, and surfaces in unexpected ways. Whenever he saw Charlotte glowing with maternal joy, it reminded him of his deceit. His phone calls to Rebecca remained minimal, but he would occasionally check her social media or texts to reassure himself. She was okay. Whenever he told Charlotte he loved her, a tinge of shame stained the words. As Charlotte's belly started to show, the Harrington family received even more public attention. Tabloids speculated about how the millionaire's heir would inherit a fortune, how the child might grow up among old money and new power alliances. Meanwhile, Charlotte tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Despite pregnancy fatigue, she successfully curated a new exhibition focusing on underrepresented women artists. She turned her unborn child into her new source of motivation, bridging her personal joy with her professional passion. But life rarely grants smooth roads to the unsuspecting. Beneath the veneer of baby bliss, a tempest was brewing. Rebecca, emboldened by her ambition and terrified of losing her grip on Alexander, was about to make a move that would shock everyone. Rebecca's patience was wearing thin. She had played her role well, a discreet companion believing that Alexander would eventually realize she was more than just an accessory. Yet now, with Charlotte's pregnancy occupying center stage, she felt sidelined, and it infuriated her. She had clawed her way to this rung of the social ladder. She wasn't about to let go without a fight. She initiated contact again, this time by sending Alexander a cryptic email to his private address. "We need to talk. Urgent." She provided a date, time, and a location, a secluded lounge at the Park Hyatt. Alexander tried ignoring the email at first, but felt a pang of dread. He knew ignoring it would be a mistake. So, on a Wednesday evening, right after dropping Charlotte off at the Met, he told his driver he had a personal matter to attend to. He slipped into the Park Hyatt unnoticed, wearing a casual blazer instead of his usual suit, hoping not to draw attention. The lounge was dimly lit, with plush chairs and an ambient hum of piano music. Rebecca stood by the window, her silhouette highlighted by the city lights. She wore a fitted burgundy dress, her dark hair swept to one side. Alexander approached, his heart pounding. She turned, her expression a mix of anger, hurt, and steely determination. He motioned for them to sit, but she remained standing, arms crossed. "You've been avoiding me," she began, voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I haven't been avoiding you," he lied. "I've been busy with your pregnant wife." She cut him off, narrowing her eyes. "Funny how that never stopped you before. Or was I just your little secret until something better came along?" Her words stung. Alexander tried to remain composed. "Rebecca, you knew my situation from the start. I never promised anything beyond." She slammed her hand on the small table, rattling the glassware. "No, you promised me the possibility of more. You said you needed time to figure things out with Charlotte." She inhaled sharply. "And now she's pregnant. So, what? Everything changes?" Alexander ran a hand through his hair, a sure sign of his anxiety. "I'm trying to do the right thing. I have responsibilities. How convenient," Rebecca sneered. "Suddenly, you've discovered your moral compass." The tension was suffocating. A couple across the lounge glanced their way, obviously sensing the hostility. Lowering her voice, Rebecca gripped Alexander's hand. "Look, I don't want to destroy your life, but I refuse to be cast aside. I've invested in you, in us." He wanted to protest that it was never them, but guilt and some twisted affection held him back. Instead, he tried placating her. "We need to keep this discreet. I'm about to become a father." Rebecca leaned in, her tone shifting from anger to quiet threat. "If you think you can just walk away and play happy family, think again. I've got emails, texts, photos, and I'm not afraid to use them. Let's be reasonable. You know I'm not some gold-digging nobody." She paused, letting her words linger. "I'm done waiting. If you really care about me, I need something more concrete. A commitment. A ring." Alexander felt the weight of her ultimatum like a punch to the gut. Proposing to Rebecca was unthinkable. Yet the fear of a public scandal, especially now, with Charlotte's pregnancy, made his head spin. "You want marriage?" he croaked out, incredulous. "At least an engagement," she demanded. "I need to know you're serious." He stared at the floor, his pulse hammering. If he refused outright, she might go public. If he agreed, he'd sink deeper into a web of lies. Rebecca softened her voice, sensing his inner turmoil. "I'm not heartless, Alexander, but I have to protect myself. I can't be the second choice." And in that moment, he realized that his carefully orchestrated life was hanging by a thread. Walking away risked everything. So did giving in. But Alexander, for the first time in his life, felt truly trapped. He left the lounge more conflicted than ever, promising Rebecca he'd think about her demands. Charlotte noticed changes in Alexander's demeanor almost immediately. He was distant, lost in thought, and sometimes downright skittish when his phone buzzed. She tried to attribute it to the pressure of business, combined with the stress of impending fatherhood. Yet, late at night, an unshakable anxiety took root in her mind. She found herself scrutinizing him more carefully, how he avoided eye contact when she mentioned the future, how he seemed on edge whenever she answered his phone. One afternoon, she decided to drop by his office unannounced, hoping a spontaneous lunch might alleviate tensions and give them a moment of closeness. She arrived at Harrington Investments around noon. The staff recognized her immediately. Mrs. Harrington was always treated with respect, if not reverence. She glided through the spacious reception area, where a large, modern sculpture of intertwined metal rods reflected the scale of Alexander's ambitions. She took the private elevator up to the executive floor. His personal assistant, Hannah Hastings, looked startled to see Charlotte. "Miss S. Harrington, I didn't know you were coming. Is Mr. Harrington expecting you?" Charlotte smiled politely. It was meant to be a surprise. "Is he in a meeting?" Hannah hesitated. "He's finishing up with a client. I'll let him know you're here." As Charlotte waited, she heard raised voices coming from Alexander's office. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent, almost desperate. Hannah looked uncomfortable, not wanting to intrude, but Charlotte's curiosity spiked. Eventually, the voices subsided and the door opened. Out walked Jacob Turner, a face Charlotte recognized from prior investment events. He looked flustered, clutching some documents tightly. He offered Charlotte a brief nod and hurried past. Charlotte stepped into Alexander's office. He was sitting behind his massive glass desk, massaging his temples. He looked surprised, then forced a smile. "Charlotte, what a lovely surprise." "Everything okay?" she asked, her eyes darting around as if looking for clues. He exhaled. "Just a difficult negotiation with a partner. Nothing to worry about." They embraced, and for a moment she let the comfort of his arms steady her, but something felt off, like he was holding back. She produced a picnic basket. "I thought we could do lunch together." Alexander's face softened. "That's a great idea. Honestly, I could use a break." They spread out the contents: charcuterie, fresh fruit, an assortment of pastries on a small round table by the window. The office had a panoramic view of Central Park. The greenery and skyline created a postcard-like backdrop, which contrasted sharply with the tension swirling in Alexander's personal life. They chatted about the baby, nursery preparations, and her upcoming exhibit expansions. Yet she sensed he was only half listening. At one point, Charlotte gently touched his arm. "Alexander, if something's bothering you, you can tell me. We're a team, remember?" He looked away, swallowing hard. "It's just business stress. These deals can be draining." She nodded, half convinced. But as she left his office that day, Charlotte felt a gnawing suspicion that there was more to it than just business. Still, she resolved to give him the benefit of the doubt, trusting that fatherhood would bring them closer eventually. Rebecca stood by a floor-to-ceiling mirror in her upscale studio apartment in Midtown. She observed her reflection, flawless makeup, designer dress, and considered the image she projected to the world, a woman of power, or at least someone intimately close to it. But for all the trappings of luxury Alexander had afforded her, she still felt the sting of uncertainty. Her personal phone pinged a message from her cousin, Linda Marshall, who lived back in Ohio. Linda asked if Rebecca might come home for a weekend family gathering. The idea of returning to that gritty environment of dead-end jobs and battered neighborhoods repelled her. She typed a non-committal response, explaining she was incredibly busy but would try to make time. She hated how fake she felt, but she also knew she couldn't let that old life drag her back. Rebecca set the phone aside and opened her laptop. She reviewed the material she had on Alexander, photos of them at a private villa in the Hamptons, text message screenshots referencing intimate rendezvous, even a couple of love notes he had jotted on hotel stationery. A part of her felt guilty for archiving these tokens like weapons, but survival in a high-stakes game required leverage. She recalled how Jacob Turner had introduced her into these circles. Initially, he had been her ticket in, but once she established her connection with Alexander, she drifted away from Jacob's orbit. He was a stepping stone, nothing more. She had no illusions about romance or loyalty in that arrangement. Her real endgame was security, influence, and the lavish lifestyle she believed she deserved. Deep down, Rebecca was terrified Alexander would ghost her entirely, leaving her with nothing. She wasn't naive. She knew that a man with his resources could bury scandals if he had enough motivation. A hush payment here, a threatened lawsuit there, and suddenly she might find her credibility shattered. This possibility fueled her desperation to secure a more lasting commitment. Grabbing her phone, she contemplated texting him. Their last conversation had ended with his ambivalent promise to think about her demands. She typed a message, then deleted it. Typed again and deleted. Finally, she wrote, "We should talk soon. I want an update on your decision." Hitting send, she stared at the screen, her heart pounding. A million what-ifs churned in her mind. What if he decided to stay with Charlotte fully and bury the affair? What if he tried to pay her off to keep her silence? The thought filled her with disgust and shame, yet part of her rationalized that any large sum could set her up comfortably for life. But money alone wouldn't restore her pride. She wanted to be recognized as someone who had won Alexander Harrington's heart, proof that she had transcended her humble beginnings once and for all. And so the stakes climbed higher, the tension mounting. Alexander's nights became sleepless. He dreaded the possibility that Rebecca would expose him. Equally, he couldn't stomach the idea of continuing the facade indefinitely. He consulted his old friend, Robert Greene, though in a very cryptic manner, never divulging the full truth. He simply said he was in a compromising situation with a woman, and Robert's eyebrows instantly shot up. "Alexander, you have to handle it carefully. These matters can ruin reputations, derail business deals." Robert was a man who had survived multiple scandals, from lawsuits to ugly divorces. He knew the cost of public humiliation. "If you need to hush her up, do it legally and discreetly. I know a couple of crisis managers who can help." Alexander felt uneasy discussing such extremes. He half-joked, "Maybe I should just end it and pray for the best." Robert gave him a long look. Prayer might not suffice if she has evidence. And if the media get hold of this, especially with Charlotte pregnant, it'll be a disaster. That same evening, Alexander sought refuge in a bottle of expensive scotch in his private study at home. Charlotte had already gone to bed, tired from her pregnancy. He stared at the flickering glow of a fireplace, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Rebecca's ultimatum replayed in his mind. She wanted an engagement ring. If he even considered it, how would he hide it from Charlotte? And if Charlotte ever discovered the ring, the heartbreak would be unimaginable. Despite everything, a part of Alexander still cared deeply for Charlotte. He recalled the early days of their relationship, her unwavering faith in him, her moral compass guiding him toward charitable endeavors he otherwise might have neglected. The thought of hurting her was almost unbearable, but reality was relentless. He had made a series of decisions that now cornered him. Finally, in a moment of desperation, he made a fateful decision. He would propose to Rebecca, give her the ring as a temporary measure to keep her silent until the baby arrived. After that, he would attempt to negotiate an exit from the arrangement. Perhaps he'd claim a change of heart, or that fatherhood had shifted his priorities entirely. It was a gamble, a horrific betrayal of Charlotte, but he told himself he had no choice. The next day, he met with a private jeweler, Leonard Dupont, known for crafting custom pieces for the city's elite. Leonard raised an eyebrow at Alexander's odd request, an extravagant engagement ring, but with absolute secrecy. Alexander chose a lavish, pear-shaped diamond, set in rose gold, meticulously designed with a halo of smaller stones. It gleamed with the brilliance of heartbreak waiting to happen. Leonard asked, "Shall I address this to Miss S. Harrington, or?" Alexander forced a smile. "No, I'll pick it up personally. No documentation in my name. We'll keep this off the books with a cash payment." Leonard complied. His line of work often demanded discretion. By the time Alexander left the jewelry showroom, the ring tucked in an inconspicuous black velvet pouch, he felt as though he had just purchased a ticket to his own doom. Rebecca arranged for them to meet at a luxury penthouse rental in Tribeca, a space she had booked for a weekend getaway. In truth, she wanted a private setting that didn't tie her to her own apartment or any place Alexander might be recognized. The penthouse was stunning floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, a minimalist decor of white leather sofas, abstract artwork, and a glass coffee table that glistened under recessed lighting. Alexander arrived just before sunset, tension radiating through him. He clutched the velvet pouch in his pocket, feeling the weight of the ring like a lead anchor. Rebecca greeted him wearing a teal silk dress, her hair pinned up elegantly, her makeup flawless. She looked every bit the high society partner she aspired to be. She motioned for him to sit at the small dining area, where champagne chilled in a bucket. He obliged, heart hammering. They clinked glasses, forcing a semblance of civility. Rebecca broke the silence. "So, you said you have something to tell me?" Alexander cleared his throat. "Rebecca, this is complicated. But you know that I know you're torn," she interrupted, her voice softening. "But I'm glad you're finally doing the right thing. For us," he couldn't bring himself to correct her. Instead, he set his glass down and slowly took the ring out, placing it on the table between them. The diamond sparkled even under the subtle pendant lights. Rebecca's eyes widened, a breath caught in her throat, tears threatening to surface. "Rebecca Marshall," Alexander began, his voice unsteady. He paused, swallowing hard. "Will you be mine?" It was a hollow script, words he'd rehearsed without conviction. But to Rebecca, this was her moment of triumph. She didn't question the authenticity of his pledge. She slid the ring onto her finger, tears brimming. "Yes," she whispered, letting out a shaky laugh. She threw her arms around him, hugging him tight. For a fleeting second, guilt overwhelmed him so powerfully he thought he might break down. They spent the evening discussing superficial details about what their future might look like. Rebecca talked about a possible wedding destination she fantasized, about Lake Como in Italy, or perhaps a private estate in the south of France. She seemed to have an entire life story mapped out, brimming with illusions. Alexander merely nodded, occasionally offering half-hearted suggestions. Late into the night, they fell asleep in each other's arms, Rebecca brimming with a twisted sense of victory, Alexander tormented by self-loathing. When morning dawned, the clarity of daylight hit him like a sledgehammer. He left before she awoke, scrawling a note, "I'll be in touch. Need to handle some affairs." Then he slipped away, consumed by dread of what lay ahead. Just when Alexander thought he might have contained the crisis, fate orchestrated a cruel twist. Charlotte's close friend, Teresa Smith, was in charge of public relations for a slew of high-profile clients. She often monitored social media for potential gossip or brand-damaging leaks. Over her morning coffee, she spotted something strange, a post from an anonymous gossip account claiming a famous billionaire fiancé had just proposed to his secret lover. The post included a blurred image of a pear-shaped diamond ring, suspiciously similar to one she'd seen in Alexander's circle. Concerned, Teresa dug deeper, applying her PR instincts. She cross-referenced the diamond ring design with local jewelers known for serving the ultra-rich. One lead pointed to Leonard Dupont's name. Intrigued and worried, she made discreet inquiries. Dupont denied revealing anything to an outsider, but Teresa sensed something was off. That same afternoon, Charlotte was at home, feeling particularly fatigued from her pregnancy. She had dozed off in the living room. Near the phone, Alexander insisted she always keep with her. Suddenly, the landline rang. Groggy, she answered, without checking the caller ID. Charlotte? Teresa's urgent voice crackled. I need to talk to you in person. It's about Alexander. A jolt of apprehension spread through Charlotte. Teresa, you're scaring me. What is it? I'd rather tell you face to face, Teresa insisted. I'm coming over now. Within an hour, Teresa arrived, her expression grim. She explained the rumor swirling around social media, showed Charlotte the anonymous gossip post. Charlotte's hand shook as she stared at the image of the ring. You think that's Alexander? Teresa hesitated. I'm not sure, Charlotte, but it's possible. The description says it's a hush-hush proposal, done in secret, and he's definitely in the right circle. Plus, I know how rings from Dupont look, they're distinctive. Charlotte felt her world tilting. She tried to breathe, tried to remain rational, but that's not enough proof. It could be anyone. Teresa nodded. I agree, but let's check your credit card or bank transactions, anything from Dupont Jewelers. Charlotte, feeling sick to her stomach, pulled up their joint accounts. Nothing indicated a jewelry purchase from Dupont, but Alexander, if he was hiding something, might have used cash or a separate account. Time seemed to crawl as they combed through statements. Finally, Teresa asked, does he have a safe or a study here? Yes, Charlotte replied, remembering Alexander's locked drawer in his study. While part of Charlotte felt uneasy about violating her husband's privacy, dread compelled her to open the drawer. She knew the combination her birthday. Inside, she found property documents, some confidential investment files, and a single black velvet pouch with Dupont's insignia. Her heart raced as she opened it, only to find it empty, no ring inside. But the presence of the pouch alone confirmed something sinister. Alexander had recently acquired an engagement ring from Dupont. Tears clouded her vision. Teresa reached over, gently rubbing her back. I'm so sorry, Charlotte. This doesn't look good. Charlotte's mind reeled. Why would Alexander buy an engagement ring if not for her? They were already married. A nauseating wave of betrayal washed over her. She felt the baby move inside her, as if the unborn child was sensing her turmoil. Teresa stayed with Charlotte for hours, trying to comfort her. They discussed possible scenarios. Could Alexander have bought it for a business partner's gift? A philanthropic raffle? But deep down, both knew the truth was more likely an affair. By evening, Charlotte's tears were replaced by a cold resolve. She needed to confront him, find the truth. She called him repeatedly, but his phone went straight to voicemail. She paced the living room, her heart pounding. Finally, near midnight, the door creaked open. Alexander entered, looking tired and distracted. He froze upon seeing Charlotte's tear-stained face and Teresa standing stiffly in the background. What's going on? He asked, voice shaky. Charlotte glared at him, brandishing the empty velvet pouch. You tell me, Alexander, why do you have a Dupont ring pouch hidden in your drawer? His face went pale. For a moment, he looked like a deer in headlights. Teresa eyed him with contempt. He stammered. It's not what you think, Charlotte snorted, tears brimming again. Oh, really? Then explain. Because from where I stand, it looks exactly like you're cheating on me, and you bought someone an engagement ring." Alexander, trapped by the weight of his lies, could only sputter half-formed excuses. Finally, the truth tumbled out in fragments. He had been seeing someone else. He felt forced to propose because she threatened to expose him. He wanted to protect Charlotte and the baby, or so he claimed. But each word was like a dagger to Charlotte's heart. By the end of his confession, Charlotte trembled with rage, heartbreak, and betrayal. Teresa stood silently, tears in her own eyes for her friend. Charlotte took a deep breath, then spoke in a voice that brooked no argument. "Get out of this house, Alexander. We're done." He tried to plead, to beg for her forgiveness, but she was unwavering. "You made a fool of me, and you put our child at risk with your deceit. I want a divorce." She ended it then and there, shattering what remained of his carefully crafted world. News travels fast in elite circles. Within hours, rumors spread that Charlotte Harrington had thrown Alexander out of their townhouse. Social media buzzed with speculations. Gossip columns leaped on the story, hinting at an affair with an unnamed woman. Photographers camped outside Harrington Investments and the townhouse, hoping to snap a photo of the estranged spouses. Charlotte stayed indoors, shutting off her phone except for essential calls from her doctor and immediate family. The shock of Alexander's betrayal, combined with pregnancy, was almost too much to bear. Teresa stepped up, acting as a gatekeeper. She instructed the household staff to turn away visitors and reject interviews. Alexander, now holed up in a luxury suite at the Four Seasons, was bombarded with messages. Rebecca demanded to know what was happening. She had caught wind of the scandal from social media and was both terrified and thrilled. She had, in one sense, won. Alexander was now free from Charlotte, but at what cost? The press coverage threatened to smear her name, expose her as the mistress. She confronted him over the phone, panicking about how this might affect her reputation. Meanwhile, Robert Greene reached out, urging Alexander to conduct damage control. "You can't just hide in a hotel, man. The board is concerned about how this will impact the company's image. You need a plan." A public statement. Alexander felt paralyzed. He had lost Charlotte, the woman he truly loved, despite all his missteps. And now, ironically, he was stuck with Rebecca, a woman he wasn't sure he even trusted. On the legal front, Charlotte wasted no time. She contacted an attorney named Hannah Williamson, recommended by Teresa. Hannah was known for championing women's rights in high-stakes divorce cases. During their first meeting, Charlotte could barely keep her composure. She recounted Alexander's infidelity, the ring, the emotional distress. Hannah listened patiently, then explained the steps to initiate divorce proceedings. "You're in a strong position, Charlotte," Hannah reassured. "Given that you're pregnant, the courts will be sympathetic to your situation. Alexander has significant assets, and we can negotiate a favorable settlement. But more importantly, we need to protect you emotionally. This is going to be a fight." Charlotte squared her shoulders, her heartbreak turning into determination. She wanted no illusions of reconciliation. Her only concern now was ensuring the financial security and emotional well-being of her unborn child. Even as she steeled herself, though, she couldn't ignore the gnawing sadness, the heartbreak of losing the man she once believed was her soulmate. She mourned the future they had painted, raising a child in a loving household, traveling to exotic destinations as a family, supporting each other's ambitions. All of that had been obliterated by Alexander's lies. In the days that followed, the tabloids exploded with headlines: "Billionaire Harrington's secret mistress exposed," and "Pregnant wife demands divorce." Paparazzi staked out the Met Museum, hoping to catch Charlotte. A few staff members at Harrington Investments leaked rumors about the tension in the office. Unverified sources claimed that Alexander's personal assistant heard him yelling at a mystery woman on the phone. The scandal was unstoppable, a tidal wave of humiliation. Charlotte braced herself, remembering her unborn child. She rubbed her stomach, whispering that they would be okay, that she would protect them from the storm. Yet, each night, she cried herself to sleep, reliving the betrayal, feeling her heart shatter anew. Rebecca, for her part, found the public scrutiny a double-edged sword. She was secretly relieved that Alexander was no longer tied to Charlotte, but she detested how the media painted her as a cunning homewrecker. Anonymous trolls on social media unleashed vile comments, calling her gold digger, whore, and worse. Some threatened her with harassment. She demanded Alexander do something about it. He tried issuing a carefully worded statement through Robert Greene's PR agency, claiming he took full responsibility for the breakdown of his marriage and asked for privacy. Nowhere did he mention Rebecca's name, though the tabloids already had pictures of her leaving exclusive hotels in the past. The statement did little to quiet the media storm. Harrington Investments took a hit. Investors worried about the founder's scandal overshadowing the company's performance. The board convened an emergency meeting to discuss the possibility of Alexander stepping back temporarily. Furious that his personal life had bled into business, Alexander resisted, but the board insisted on an interim CEO to maintain public confidence. Reluctantly, he agreed. Meanwhile, Charlotte's divorce case progressed swiftly. Hannah Williamson filed in New York courts, citing irreconcilable differences and marital misconduct. In an age of high-profile divorces, this one promised to be especially messy, given the unborn child and the Mistress fiasco. The law firm spelled out the demands: a substantial alimony, child support, and significant property settlement. Charlotte tried to avoid being vindictive, but she also recognized that Alexander owed her a sense of security after upending her life. Friends rallied around Charlotte. Teresa practically moved in with her, ensuring she ate well and attended prenatal checkups. The museum staff were discreetly supportive, stepping in to lighten her workload. Even Robert Greene called her privately, apologizing for Alexander's behavior and offering help if she needed it. She thanked him, but declined. In a surprisingly human gesture, Alexander tried to reach out to Charlotte multiple times, leaving voicemails and sending messages that remained unanswered. He wrote lengthy emails, apologizing profusely, begging for a conversation. Charlotte read them, but never responded. She found no solace in his words, only more pain. As the days turned into weeks, the tension escalated. The paparazzi wanted pictures of Charlotte's growing baby bump. They wanted the scoop on whether Alexander and Rebecca would move in together, marry publicly. Rebecca, for all her cunning, was unprepared for this level of vitriol and stalking. She felt trapped, longing for a time when she maneuvered in the shadows without being the center of a scandal. At night, Alexander and Rebecca argued incessantly. She accused him of not standing by her publicly. He accused her of pressuring him into a disastrous proposal. Their relationship became a toxic battleground, each realizing that lust and ambition might not survive the glare of reality. Still, they clung to each other out of desperation, neither wanting to face the consequences alone. Months passed, and the divorce proceedings approached their final stages. Charlotte's baby bump was now very noticeable, and she found solace in the quiet routine of preparing for the child. She purchased essentials, set up a nursery, and even took a few prenatal yoga classes recommended by friends. An underlying strength welled within her, the maternal instinct to protect and nurture life. The tabloids had slowly moved on to other scandals, although occasional updates about the Harrington divorce still appeared. The public, easily bored, found fresh prey. That was a small mercy. Charlotte managed to maintain a semblance of privacy, focusing on her health and the child's well-being. In a sudden turn of events, Harrington Investments made a major announcement, Alexander Harrington would be stepping down as CEO permanently, citing personal reasons. The official press release claimed it was amicable and that he would remain a major shareholder. Insiders knew it was partly forced by the board, who cited irreparable brand damage. For his part, Alexander seemed strangely relieved. He had grown weary of the relentless demands of high finance. He also hoped to salvage some part of his relationship with Charlotte, even if only as co-parents. Rebecca, though momentarily supportive of him, found her illusions of a glamorous future with Alexander waning. Without the shining power seat at Harrington Investments, was he still the golden ticket she had pursued? Their arguments escalated. She urged him to invest in a new venture, to reassert his dominance. He found himself exhausted, unmotivated, and riddled with remorse. The final blow to their relationship came when she demanded they set a wedding date, and he refused. "I can't marry you, Rebecca," he finally admitted, his voice defeated. "Not like this. My life is a disaster. We barely get along, I'm sorry." She slapped him in a final heated exchange, calling him a coward, before storming out of his hotel suite. The next day, she checked out, leaving no forwarding address. The ring stayed on her finger for now, but the hollow promise it represented was laid bare. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks after that. Charlotte secured a generous settlement. Joint custody arrangements would be addressed once the baby was born. Although she agreed to keep a civil line of communication open for the child's sake, she made it clear there was no room for reconciliation. Alexander was allowed to attend prenatal appointments if he wished, but he appeared only once, standing awkwardly in the background while the doctor performed an ultrasound. Charlotte held it together, focusing on the whooshing sound of the baby's heartbeat instead of the tension in the room. When the baby finally arrived, a beautiful girl they named Amelia Charlotte felt a wave of pure, unadulterated joy. She held Amelia close, tears of relief and love streaming down her face. She had survived betrayal, scandal, and heartbreak, yet in her arms was a tiny being who represented hope and new beginnings. Alexander arrived at the hospital, anxious and remorseful. Charlotte allowed him a brief moment to hold Amelia. She watched him cradle the infant, tears glistening in his eyes. She understood that despite everything, he was Amelia's father. A part of her still felt a shred of empathy for the man she once loved. But her boundaries were firm. He would never again have the privilege of her trust. In the following months, Alexander tried to piece his life back together. He started a modest venture capital fund, ironically focusing on ethical tech startups. He rented a smaller townhouse far from the Upper East Side drama. Occasionally he visited Amelia, bringing gifts and attempting to bond with her in short intervals. Charlotte, however, maintained control. She allowed the visits under strict conditions, ensuring Amelia's well-being remained paramount. Rebecca, meanwhile, popped up in society pages now and then, often photographed with other wealthy men. Rumors circulated that she had parted ways with Alexander. Eventually, she sold the diamond ring he'd given her. Some said she used the funds for an extravagant shopping spree in Paris. Others claimed she invested it in a rumored real estate project. Whichever version was true, she had moved on, chasing the dream that first brought her to New York. Charlotte continued her work at the Met, albeit on a less grueling schedule to accommodate her new responsibilities as a mother. She found joy in curating art that celebrated resilience, transformation, and the power of human creativity. She saw reflections of her own journey in those artworks, surviving heartbreak and emerging stronger. And so, life moved on. The scandal became just another footnote in the ever-revolving narrative of high society drama. For Charlotte, the most important chapter was yet to be written, raising Amelia with love, instilling in her a sense of self-worth and honesty that would never be eroded by wealth or power. For Alexander, it was an ongoing lesson in regret, redemption, and the simple truth that betrayal, once wrought, can rarely be undone. In the end, the story of the millionaire proposes to mistress but pregnant wife, finds out and divorces him on the spot, became cautionary fodder for tabloids and a whispered parable among Manhattan's elite. But for those who lived it, Charlotte, Alexander, and even Rebecca, it was a painful, transformative chapter that none would soon forget. From the very first spark of forbidden attraction to the fiery collision of betrayal, Alexander Harrington's tale is a potent reminder that secrets can unravel even the most glittering facade. His affair with Rebecca may have offered momentary thrills, but the cost was devastating: a shattered marriage and the heartbreak of a pregnant wife forced to stand alone. Yet from the ashes, Charlotte rose stronger, determined to secure a better life for herself and her child. In the world of the ultra-wealthy, reputations hang by threads, and a single scandal can scorch an entire empire. Still, redemption often lies in facing one's failures head-on and forging a path toward authenticity and healing. If you found yourself gripped by this story, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama fiction that proves truth is often stranger than fiction. Thank you for watching.